Welcome back to the Future of Real Estate. I'm Brett Ellis of the Ellis team at RE/MAX Realty Group. You can always reach us at 239-489-4042. That website again is topagent.com. Before we went to break, we were talking about some Treasury guidelines in the short sales, but it's a little bit complicated because they're mixing up short sales, and there's like a home owners modification act and a foreclosure alternative act, and the way banks must intertwine the two. Now, on the surface of things, banks have had a hard enough time doing short sales on their own. Right. If you start commingling a couple different regulations and guidelines, it's going to be amazing to see how the banks get 2 or 3 different programs straight, not alone
well,
one.
It looks kind of like to me like they're trying to take this process to a different way. In other words, say that someone applied for the home loan modification program and that did not work for them. Okay, now they've come through with alternatives to that. And I think that's where they're starting. And then there's guidelines for that. I mean, again, you have to qualify.
Well, let's talk about who would be eligible for the home affordable modification program. So if you want to modify your loan, basically it's got to be your principal residence. The first lien must have originated before 2009. They don't want someone doing it who just bought this year.
Oh, yeah, because somebody could have bought it for that purpose almost.
It must be delinquent or default is reasonably foreseeable. So that's good.
That's your hardship letter, I think.
Yeah. The unpaid principal balance must be $729,750 or less. So these aren't for millionaires,
right?
Millionaire properties. And the total monthly payment, the borrower's total monthly payment can't exceed more than 31%.
A gross monthly income.
Or actually, it must exceed. So if it's only 22% of your gross monthly income, they're not going to look at you for a loan modification. They feel like you can afford it.
Well, and because what they're attempting to do on the loan modification is to bring that payment down, if they can, to 31% of your monthly income. So if it's already less than that, how could they help you?
There's some guidelines how you can request approval for a short sale, which is the RASS program.
That's kind of interesting, though, Brett. I found that to be a good thing. Because if you did request it, then they could ideally come back to you with figures that you could use
to market, to pre-market
your
short sale.
To pre-market the home, so you'd know what they were going to take at the end. So it's not a hit or miss or throw it,
and,
target.
I know Bank of America is starting a process. They're working on it. Where, remember those pilot test programs last year where they tried it, HUD did anyway, and said, if you want to market your home as a short sale, we will take X amount of dollars. So you kind of know. They'll do their market analysis, their BPO, and they'll know going in, hey, this property isn't a $400,000 property more. It's an $82,000 property. We will sell it for $80,000.
Well, now I heard about some things like that, but I never saw those. I had the situations where you had to go in there and actually figure out what you reasonably thought that they would take.
Well, reality and theory were 2 different things. Yeah. But at least in this government program, I'm starting to see elements of that theory put back into place. Now, the question is, do we see it manifest itself into reality? I hope we do. I think that would be great.
The other side of that, Brett, was that we envisioned each one of these people that were negotiators, that were handling these files, of having a desk with files. They were hidden behind the files. I mean, they were, maybe each of them had 500 or 600 files. It was not a reasonable situation for them to handle. So what happened is that the seller, or the person that wanted to sell their home, that even entered into the short sale agreement, then became captive for them to get through those files. It was months sometimes before you could even get a response.
Let's put this in perspective. Bank of America is getting $75,000 requests a month to either modify or do a short sale.
Okay, $75,000 a month.
That's a lot of phone calls just to answer the phone. Not alone have a negotiator working on those files.
Yeah, and they didn't have that many negotiators. So they had to wait until they got into that process.
You could see why the banks were in this position.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And I fault them, I blame them, but it's kind of hard because how would we answer 75,000 calls?
Right.
So there's a lot more to this. Now, there's some modifications where if you're involved in a modification or a short sale, they can't complete the foreclosure on you. How many times have we heard people say, hey, I thought I had a short sale approved, and they foreclosed on me?
Yeah, we have heard of that. Yeah, it didn't happen to us, but we have heard about it. Yes.
Exactly. Let's see. What else? Have you noticed any other things in this, Sandy?
Well, there were some things about releasing the people from liability. They would be released from the liability on the first mortgage, which, that's pretty significant.
Oh, and they could come after you for a deficiency judgment.
Yeah.
For a promissory note, you wouldn't have to come up with any money.
Right.
And that's
right.
a good thing because we've seen a lot of that happening.
Yes. Or just the unknown, that you really didn't know what they were going to do. So,
but that's only on first mortgages. If you have a second mortgage, does this regulation speak to any
I
of that?
I believe it later on, as you get through these processes, it does speak to that, and they're requiring the same thing on some of these.
Well, I saw some language, and I got to read it further, where it looked like it's a 1-to-3 ratio, where the second can't take more than a third of what the first does on the short. But I didn't know if it said you can't do a promissory note if there's a second involved.
But provided that they take that and that they participate, then I believe they were denied the opportunity to come back for
a promissory note.
Yeah.
Well, that'd be kind of nice too, because
right. They could maybe choose not to participate. I'm not sure about that.
Technically, the bank should be paid, and the more they're paid, the less we have to bail them out. But on the other hand, you want to get these deals done, because if you don't, they're going to be foreclosures, and it's going to blight the neighborhood and a lot of other things. So everything you do is kind of a balance kind of a thing. So anything else in here that you noticed that's really worth mentioning?
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of in there. Actually, Brett, I need to read the whole thing. The 47 pages or whatever it is, I think, in order to
the deal must be
totally
arm's length.
understand
You can't
it.
have a relative involved.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's important.
There's a
but
question,
think about that.
thing in here. What else should I know? So that's why it caught my attention.
Yeah.
The amount of debt forgiven might be treated as income for tax purposes under a law that expires at the end of 2012. However, the tax may not apply. So forgiven debt will not be taxed if the amount of forgiven debt does not exceed the debt that was used to acquire, construct, or rehabilitate a principal residence. I guess you need to check with a tax advisor on that one. Yeah. The servicer will report to the credit reporting agencies that the mortgage was settled for less than full payment. This will be a negative effect on your credit score, but that's happening already.
Oh, yeah. So it's already a ding. What you just don't want is the full-fledged.
The buyer cannot reconvey the property for 90 days if they buy it through short sale. So, some interesting stuff.
There were some interesting things on commissions, too, because from the realtor's point of view, some of these companies were extremely brutal when it came to commission. Like,
they're not going to be allowed to do that, which is going to encourage agents to want to work these deals, which is going to encourage these sales.
However, there's sort of a strange situation there where it says that if they required a vendor to come in to handle some of it, that would be taken from the commission.
Also,
so that was, for me, sort of a gray area of what they were really doing there.
If you turn realtors off, they're not going to do these things. They're going to come back as foreclosures.
Absolutely. Oh, certainly. Yeah.
So everybody else has got a bailout except for the realtors. The banks got it. The automakers got it. Realtors didn't get it. And it's tough. It's a tough business.
Yeah, it's a tough
business. You work hard. Your labor, your marketing costs haven't gone down. People expect more out of you, and for less pay. And a lot of realtors have gotten out of the business. But you need them to do these short sales. They're so complicated. You can't do it without a realtor. You just can't.
Right, and that was another one of the things that you could not do it. Even a realtor holding their own. Let's say that a realtor did a short sale, they could not be compensated in any way.
I agree.
Okay, but if they buy one, they also cannot receive a commission for it. You agree with that?
I could probably go either way on that. I mean, I don't really agree with that, but I can kind of see. So we'll just agree to not address that issue right now.
Okay. So. But anyway, that is some of the things that are involved in this.
Lots more stuff, I'm sure. Tell you what, we need to take a break. You've been listening and watching The Future of Real Estate presented by the Ellis team at RE/MAX. When we come back, we'll have more, so stay tuned.